A former Canadian Olympic snowboarder is wanted in a multinational drug trafficking ring and a double murder in the GTA.
Plus, we're live near Eglinton and Laird tonight, where a crane has collapsed. We'll have the very latest from the scene in moments.
And a rally is being held this hour to call for new subway trains on the TTC's Line 2.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Beatrice Faisman. Welcome to Live at 5. A former Canadian Olympian is now wanted in the U.S. for running a drug trafficking ring, and he's also wanted in the GTA for a double murder in Caledon last year.
The FBI announced today it's offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of extradition of 43-year-old Ryan James Wedding. The former Olympic snowboarder was living in Mexico and is considered a fugitive. He's been charged with running a drug trafficking ring that shipped vast amounts of cocaine across South and North America and killed several people. Wedding's one of 16 people charged in connection with a ring that moved 60 tons of cocaine a year.
This organization was responsible for moving literally tons of cocaine into the United States and into Canada. This group was led by an individual named Ryan Wedding. Ryan Wedding previously was an Olympic athlete for Canada, but instead of using the privileges that come with being an Olympic athlete to do good for people, he did the opposite. He chose to become a major drug trafficker, and he chose to become a killer.
The former Canadian Olympian is also wanted in a double murder in Caledon last year. That's in connection to this drug trafficking ring.
Let's bring in CP24's crime analyst for Steve Ryan for a closer look at this investigation. Steve, this is a massive investigation. You've got different jurisdictions, transnational, connected to a homicide in Peel now, one in Niagara. I guess, where do police begin in unraveling all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they'll do their own separate investigations, and then they will share intelligence, multi-jurisdictional, multinational. And now that they believe that this Wedding guy is responsible for orchestrating these two murders in Caledon, they will seek to have him arrested. So that's going to be ultimately up to the Mexican authorities. Right now, there'd be a warrant for his arrest, I would assume. Once he is apprehended, then the Canadian authorities here will work on an extradition treaty to get him back here to this jurisdiction to answer to these charges.
Okay, so Steve, as a former homicide detective, talk about these two murders in Caledon, you know, notifying the family that, hey, we may be able to have some closure for you here leading to this guy, pointing to this guy.
Yeah, and that is one of the very few rewards, if you will, when it comes to investigating a homicide, is to be able to tell the family, we have what we believe is the person responsible, and here's what we believe has happened. Families are always looking for answers, not even necessarily the person responsible, but what happened to my loved one. And I think this also illustrates just the sheer brutality of drug cartels. They keep close eye on their product, and if their product disappears, their drugs disappear, or they believe somebody intercepted those drugs, if they can't get you as the person they think duped them, they'll get your loved ones. And this is what's happened in this case. But what we're told is the people that were killed in Caledon last year were the wrong people. It was the wrong address. But nonetheless, the intent was to get back at the person who they believed intercepted this large quantity of narcotics.
The FBI's offered a $50,000 reward. And when you talk about extradition back here to face the allegations of murder, I mean, what comes first? Does he first stand trial in Los Angeles for, you know, being this billion-dollar drug tycoon, it sounds like? Or does he come to Canada to answer to murder charges here?
So if the drug lifestyle, if you will, was ongoing before the murder, so I would suspect that they will deal with the drug aspect in the United States first, and then once that's dealt with, they'll have him tried here in Ontario.
Okay, so Steve, along those lines, this is receiving international attention. I received a push alert from ESPN. Is there any added pressure on the police jurisdiction with all of this added attention?
Yeah, no added pressure, because all homicide investigations are important to the investigators and to the families. But this is one of those cases where it's high profile, so you want to make sure that your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, if you will, because people like this, these type of cartels, will have the strongest of defense attorneys who are going to make sure that everything is done right. So it just makes you do your job properly. But as far as pressure goes, there's no more added pressure in this case than any other, I would assume.
Are you surprised? 13 years, the FBI said this drug cartel has been operating. Are you surprised that it's taken so long for them to actually point the finger at Ryan Wedding and identify him as the leader of this ring?
Probably not. They may have intel on him and his organization for a long time, but those organizations are so hard to infiltrate. And that's because they run a tight ship and they operate with fear and intimidation. So people turning fingers in on them is unlikely. Witnesses giving evidence against them is unlikely. So it does take a long time. So 13 years is a long time, but to infiltrate an organized drug cartel like this, who are responsible for billions of dollars of drugs being distributed, I don't think so.
All right, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Don't go too far. We're going to continue this conversation next half hour. Thanks a lot. With that, it is 5:05, 14 degrees. Let's get a check on the evening commute. The traffic specialist, Adj Adj, you got to help us navigate our way around the GTA. How bad is it?
I'm going to use my magic wand, and it's broken. It's not doing much because, we're not getting anywhere quick. So if you need to be anywhere, at least in this hour, it's going to take you a while, especially if you're on the 401. Major delays continue as you make your way out of Scarborough. They start from Warden on the 401 westbound, and they pretty much continue out to Dixie. Same situation on the eastbound side. My cameras keep going out intermittently, but it's a slow go on the 401 if you're traveling across the top of the city. Checking out the drive on the Don Valley Parkway, it remains busy, but slightly improving. Now it's busiest from north of Bayview Bloor right on through to the 401, and checking out the commute on the Gardner. Problem free, at least at this point. Keep your shades available. Westbound traffic really getting blinded by that sunshine. So as you head out, adding to your slow drive from Jarvis through that construction zone all the way out towards Dufferin. Even the eastbound side slows into the downtown core. Outside of camera view, we do have some major problems happening out Hamilton Way. So on the 403 westbound, this is at Jerseyville Road, all lanes blocked following a very serious crash. I'll send it back to you.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Prosecutors are seeking a court order to assess whether an Ontario woman accused of killing 3 people in 3 cities over 3 days is fit to stand trial.
We're talking about Sabrina Kaldar. Her defense says that it also has, quote, some fitness concerns, but has been instructed by its client to oppose an assessment. 30-year-old Kaldar is facing 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. She's accused of killing 66-year-old Trin Thivu in Toronto, 47-year-old Lance Cunningham, that's in Niagara Falls, and 77-year-old Mario Billich in Hamilton.
Another Ontario woman is alleging that she was sexually assaulted by a group of former junior hockey players.
I thought it was my fault. I thought I was the one that was responsible because I had made the choice to go hang out with this guy and a couple of buddies.
The victim, who's going by the name Anne-Marie, revealed the details of the alleged incident to W5's Rick Westhead. She says the assault took place 10 years ago when she was 22 years old. Anne-Marie came forward earlier this year to the OPP, which directed her somewhere else.
This set of allegations is horrible. She says that she had a casual and consensual relationship when she was 22 years old in 2014 with one of the Ontario Hockey League players who invited her over to watch TV with a friend. He was 19 at the time, she says. And that when she arrived at this player's billet home, she went into the basement with him, and there was actually 8 players there. And she says that she was taken into a bathroom in the basement, and what started as kind of consensual fooling around turned into a group sexual assault.
The OPP have released a statement on the incident saying we can confirm the civilian call taker provided the victim with the contact information for the police service of jurisdiction to facilitate the report. However, standard operating procedures state that the call taker should have personally connected the caller to the police service of jurisdiction and remained on the line until the call taker could confirm that a report was being initiated.
And the OHL has released a statement that reads in part, quote, the league takes allegations of this nature very seriously and will cooperate with any corresponding police investigation. The OHL recognizes the courage required for victims of sexual assault to come forward with their experiences and would always desire to see justice served and perpetrators held to account.
A Bolton man has been arrested for allegedly posting videos online showing himself stunt driving on a motorcycle across the GTA.
Peel and York police began a joint investigation in September after becoming aware of a stunt driving social media channel. So police have shared some of the footage showing a motorcyclist weaving through traffic, running red lights, and reaching as high as 258 kilometers an hour. We're talking about 40-year-old Gregory Harrington, who's facing 51 charges, including 21 counts of dangerous driving and 19 counts of stunt driving. Well, a crane has collapsed. This is at a construction site in East York.
Let's go live to CP24's Sija Liu, who has just arrived at the scene. This is Vanderhoof Avenue near Laird and Eglinton. So what are you seeing, Sija? What are you learning there?
Good afternoon. Well, we are learning that this was at the site of a future condo building. There was work happening at the site when the crane collapsed shortly after 3 p.m., but fortunately, no injuries were reported. We'll give you a closer look at some of the images we captured earlier. So the big question right now is, how did the crane collapse? That is something the Ministry of Labor will be investigating. They'll be coming in tomorrow and will be taking over the investigation. Right now, fire crews are on scene. Police earlier had the roadblock. The EMS were called to the scene as well. So the big question is, how did the failure occur? That's what the Ministry of Labor will be investigating. But based on the CP24 chopper footage we saw, it does appear that the crane's arm, the top part, was what may have collapsed. It's crumbled a little bit there. And then we also see some wires that typically hold up the crane that are also hanging underneath. The pulley that is typically on the crane is also not there right now. There is also a bucket of cement that fell. So these are just some of the images that we're seeing that might give us a better idea of what might have happened here. But earlier today, we did speak with the Deputy Fire Chief, Jim Sop. Here's what he had to say about the situation.
We had two of our special technical operations. Our squads were here, in case we had to rappel up and climb up and get the crane operator. The crane operator was able to safely extricate themselves from the crane. And at this point now, it's just scene stabilization and awaiting the Ministry of Labor and their engineers.
And the fire officials I spoke to a few minutes ago, I asked them, how often does this type of crane collapse happen? They say it's really quite rare. They've only seen it on a number of occasions in the last 5 years. However, it was enough for fire crews to develop a crane squad to tackle this specific type of situation. But regardless, the Ministry of Labor will now be taking over the investigation. And the good news here is that no one was injured in this incident, but a lot of investigating still to figure out what exactly caused this crane to collapse. Back to you.
Yeah, we can see it precariously hanging behind you. Sija Liu reporting from Laird and Eglinton. Thanks for this.
Right now it's 5:12, 14 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The NDP is calling for an investigation into the Ontario Place redevelopment, saying it has evidence the Ford government gave Austrian company Therma special treatment. We'll have more on this right after the break. Ontario's top court has now sided with 7 young people in their challenge of the province's climate change plan and ordered a new hearing.
Earlier this year, the youth group claimed that the government's weakened emissions target violates their constitutional rights. The province argued that its actions were not the subject of the charter, and the trial judge ruled in its favor. So today's ruling sends the case back to the lower court for a new hearing. It found the lower court judge's analysis was flawed on some key points. The environmental law charity Eco Justice backed the young people who brought the challenge and calls this a landmark victory.
By confirming that the charter applies to Ontario's inadequate target and that Ontario's failure to act on climate change is risking the lives and well-being of its citizens, this ruling boxes Ontario in a corner. While the court didn't go as far as ordering the province to set a science-based target, the decision brings us one giant step closer to ensuring that Ontario answers for its inadequate climate action.
I joined this case because the climate crisis is going to impact everyone, both now and into the future. It is important for me to be a part of this case because we need to stand up for the generations to come and make sure that they have a safe and livable planet.
The province has responded with a statement from a spokesperson for the Attorney General, which reads in part, Ontario is a leader in tackling climate change, with 86% of Canada's total emissions reductions attributed to our province's efforts. We're on track to meet emissions reduction targets and will continue to build on our success by ensuring Ontario remains a global leader. No decision from the Court of Appeal was made regarding the constitutionality of Ontario's climate change plan or target. The matter was sent back to the Superior Court for a new hearing.
Well, the NDP has filed a complaint with the Integrity Commissioner over the redevelopment of Ontario Place. So the NDP claims it has evidence that the Ford government gave Austrian company Therma special treatment when it was contracted to build a massive spa and water park. The NDP is calling for an investigation into the deal and the involvement of Minister of Infrastructure, Kinga Surma.
There are some instances of lobbyists from Therma interacting with folks who are very involved in the deal at the government level at Infrastructure Ontario. The preferential aspect relates to the parking predominantly. So the government, when they originally put out their request for proposals, said, you know, there's no room to put new parking in there. And then somehow, in the process and the consideration of Therma, that became an option. And as far as we can tell at this point, the province then didn't go back out to other potential bidders to see if that changed their bid. So we think that there is something there.
Therma secured a 95-year lease to redevelop Ontario Place, which includes a provincial opt-out with 5 years' notice after the facility's been in operation for 10 years.
There is speculation the Ford government is preparing to offer $200 payouts to all Ontario residents in the upcoming fall economic statement. Finance Minister Peter Bethlen-Falvey was asked about it at an event at the Empire Club.
As I said, I'm going to table my fall economic statement on October 30th. So what I will say that is, I'm constantly looking at ways, as you heard from the Premier, putting money back in people's pockets. That includes businesses, but we're also very focused on rebooting the economy and gridlock. So there's many things, and I'd say wait till the economic statement.
A Liberal leader, Bonnie Crombie, says that the rumored payouts, they are a distraction.
You know, this is a government that's been promising middle-class tax cuts and has delivered nothing. An Ontario Liberal Party would deliver middle-class tax cuts. This is just another gimmick. What we've been seeing is just gimmicks and distractions from the real issues facing Ontarians. You know, sadly, there was an opportunity here today at the Empire Club to lay out a vision for the future. And what I saw was no vision, no excitement from this crowd, and frankly, no hope for Ontarians.
Bethlen-Falvey will deliver the fall economic statement October 30th.
The province is introducing legislation to speed up road construction.
The Building Highways Faster Act would designate priority highway projects, which includes Highway 413, the Bradford Bypass, and the Garden City Skyway Bridge. The bill would streamline utility relocations, accelerate access to property, and introduce new penalties for obstructing access for field investigations or damaging equipment.
From roads to bike lanes, city staff are recommending council endorse a plan for nearly 4-kilometer-long bike lane on Parkside Drive. A report calling for the bike lane was released on Tuesday. The same day, the Ford government announced a plan that would require municipalities to get provincial approval to build new bike lanes. The bike lane is the result of the Parkside Drive study, which looked into improving safety on the road between Keele Station and the waterfront. Council also wants to improve safety at Parkside's Lakeshore and Bloor intersections, including introducing designated turning lanes.
And a rally is being held this hour to call for new subway trains on the TTC's Line 2.
Here's a live look now outside of Bathurst Station. The transit advocacy group called TTC Riders is calling on federal members of parliament to invest in TTC repairs and new trains on Line 2 by accelerating the implementation of the Canada Public Transit Fund. The current trains on Line 2 will reach the end of their design life in 2026. ATU Local 113, that's the union which represents TTC workers, is also taking part in the rally.
Right now it's 5:20, 14 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is expected to shuffle his cabinet after 4 cabinet ministers have decided not to seek re-election. That story after the break.
4 Liberal cabinet ministers have decided not to seek re-election.
Yeah, the Prime Minister is expected to shuffle his cabinet yet again because of these decisions. Philomena Tassi, she's announced that she won't be running for personal reasons. Meantime, a senior government source says Marie-Claude Bibeau, Carla Qualtrough, and Dan Vandal also will not be putting their names on the ballot. We spoke with CTV's Rachel Aiello, who says the timing of the move is interesting for the Trudeau Liberals.
Obviously, this comes amid continuing pressure on the Prime Minister from within his caucus. CTV News has reported that as of next week's Liberal caucus meeting, there are a few members of his team that will be going to him directly and asking for him to consider stepping aside. So the timing of a minister leaving is never good, but certainly this announcement from 4 cabinet ministers today that they will not be running again just days before that high-stakes Liberal caucus meeting is certainly of note, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister is feeling the pressure of this massive political update.
A shuffle could happen as early as next week.
Right now it's 5:24, 14 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the city's new plan for arts and culture will provide residents with one free culture experience per month. It was about the economy yesterday. Today is about culture. The city announcing this new action plan to help strengthen the city's cultural landscape.
It's a 10-year plan called the Culture Connects, which proposes significant new investments in culture to benefit artists, cultural organizations, and audiences alike. So as part of the plan, the city is going to invest $35 million over the next decade to support diverse cultural initiatives.
Art and culture makes our city more livable. They help increase our quality of life and drive our economy. They even help define who we are to the world. It also influences us by asking us to look at the world in a different perspective.
I'm really excited to introduce Toronto's new action plan for culture. A lot of action in Culture Connects. This lays out our vision for arts and culture for the next decade, really. It's an ambitious plan, but it's also meant to be an inspiring one. It's built upon really this core belief that culture should be an essential part of the daily life of everyone in Toronto, everyone. And so no matter where you live, what your background is, or how you engage with the arts today and going forward, culture needs to be so much more.
Well, the plan also ensures every resident has access to at least one free cultural experience in their neighborhood each month.
Interesting. It is 5:28, 14 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
A former Canadian Olympic snowboarder is wanted in a multinational drug trafficking ring and a double murder in the GTA. We're going to discuss this and the latest with CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan. That's coming up.
We're live near Eglinton and Laird tonight, where a crane has collapsed. Our Sija Lou is there. We'll have the latest from the scene in moments.
And a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder is wanted in a multinational drug trafficking and a double murder in the GTA.
Plus, a rally is being held this hour to call for a new subway trains on the TTC's Line 2.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, I'm Beatrice Faisman.
And I'm Bakari Savage. A crane has collapsed at a construction site in East York.
Let's go live to CP24's Sija Lou, who is at the scene. This is Vanderhoof Avenue near Laird and Eglinton. We were just showing a live shot. A couple of, I guess, construction workers or maybe ministry analyzers. They're on top of the crane right now. Sija, what's going on?
Hi there. There is certainly an active investigation into how this crane collapsed. That is the focus right now. Fortunately, we're learning that although there was work happening at this construction site when the crane collapsed, nobody was injured. Fire crews were here earlier just in case they needed to go in, rappel, and extricate the workers. But fortunately, everyone was able to get out safely. So it's still unclear what happened at this moment, but the Ministry of Labor will be taking over the investigation. They'll be here tomorrow looking into the big question of what caused this failure to occur. Based on some of the footage we captured earlier from crews on scene in the CP24 chopper, you could see the crane's arm appears to have crumbled over the top of the building. You have the arm hanging over the building. There were also wires on the crane that typically hold it up. You can see those wires hanging down right now. A pulley that is typically on the crane also is not there. There was also a cement bucket that fell to the side of the building. We'll let you hear more from the deputy fire chief on their investigation and how often this type of incident typically occurs.
We've had a number of crane collapses over the last number of years, and Toronto Fire Service has actually developed a crane program for our technical operations and our special squads. So, part of a growing city, as we all know, we have more cranes in the sky than almost any city in North America right now combined. And again, very lucky it fell the way it did, and it did not fall into one of the occupied condominiums on the other side of it.
Certainly, this could have been a lot worse, but you can see those mangled wires hanging from the crane. We have some workers also standing on the top there investigating. There were also some workers in the adjacent building, but this certainly will be an active scene tomorrow as the Ministry of Labor comes here to take over the investigation. But the good news here tonight is that no one was injured, even though there were workers here when the crane collapsed. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Sijia Liu. Again, that is at Laird and Eglinton. Thank you very much. And with that, it's 5:33, 14 degrees. Let's get a check on the commute with Adjua Intiayaba.
How is it this afternoon, Aj?
Yeah, we have major problems now happening in Devon. So if you're a commuter headed north on the 400, patience is what you're going to need. Alternatives also getting pretty jammed, but I'll show you where the problems are. So northbound 400 in the Express. This is just north of Highway 7 in the heart of Vaughan. So you find the 3 left lanes are out following a collision. That backlog extends from the 401. Drivers are bailing using Jane. It's getting busier. So is Weston Road. Maybe Keel's a better alternative if you're trying to get yourself through. On the 401, we had some problems. Looks like they quickly came and went. Eastbound 401 in the Express through Yonge Street. A right lane was out with the collision. Everything's come and gone. And if you're traveling towards the Gardner, just a reminder, it's pretty busy as you make your way into and actually as you head out of the downtown core. Just strictly dealing with volume delays because of the continued long-term road work. I'll send it back to you, B. and Bakari.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adj.
You're welcome.
Well, a former Canadian Olympian is wanted in the U.S. for running a drug trafficking ring, and he's also wanted in the GTA for a double murder. This was in Caledon last year.
His picture is on your screen right now. This is Ryan Wedding, and the FBI announcing today it's offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and extradition of 43-year-old Wedding. The former Olympic snowboarder was living in Mexico and is considered a fugitive. He has been charged with running a drug trafficking ring that shipped vast amounts of cocaine across North and South America and alleged to have killed several people as well. Wedding is one of 16 people charged in connection with a ring that has moved 60 tons of cocaine per year. CP24 also learning this afternoon Toronto police is also involved in this drug trafficking investigation.
They were killers. Anyone who got in their way, they would target for violence, including murder. Let me describe this criminal enterprise in more detail. For the last 13 years, Wedding ran this criminal enterprise. It was a $1 billion criminal enterprise which he ran with his partner, Clark, from Mexico. Wedding went by various names and nicknames, including Giant, El Jefe, and Public Enemy.
The former Canadian Olympian is also wanted in a double murder in Caledon last year, also a murder in Peel, and another one in Niagara Falls. So to untangle all of this, let's bring in CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ryan, for a closer look.
Okay, so along those lines, Steve, Wedding, he's not in Canada right now. I believe he's in Mexico. What does that tell you about law enforcement efforts so far?
The FBI say that Wedding and his cohorts have been operating out of Mexico for over a decade. So they were getting their cocaine from Colombia, and that cocaine was cooked and manufactured in Colombia, shipped up to Mexico, and then over into the western United States border through California, and then it was transported to the east coast in the United States and then up into Canada. So it's an elaborate operation. Billions of dollars were made in this operation over the last decade or so. So he's been operating in Mexico. This is now a transnational investigation. It's difficult for the police when it's different countries, of course, but they share intelligence all the time. So it's a matter of sharing information. There should be a warrant for his arrest, I would assume, in Mexico once he's apprehended in Mexico, and then he'll be extradited most likely to the United States for all these drug charges, and then perhaps on his way here to Canada to answer through these murder charges as well.
We heard the U.S. attorney in that clip say these guys are killers. There's 16 people in total in this drug trafficking ring. Ryan Wedding is believed to be the mastermind behind all of this. When you talk to, we did speak with the OPP in the 4 o'clock hour. How difficult is it for police now to work with these families, who police say are innocent families, mistaken identity, to say, yeah, we're going to try to bring him to justice for these horrible crimes, but he's also involved in this just massive U.S. investigation? How do you bridge that as an officer?
So you're able to, thankfully, give the family, I hate using the word closure, but give the family some closure because they'll have some answers as to what happened to their loved ones. But with regards to the investigation itself, trying to infiltrate such huge drug cartels is very difficult. Oftentimes, law enforcement has an idea as to what's going on over the years. They just can't get in there to get the evidence. So this may be why it took so long for them to come to this conclusion after over 13 years of investigating.
I see. What's the big message to take away from here?
Well, if you're operating any sort of criminal enterprise, at some point in time, the gig is going to be up, regardless of what country you are in. But also, given the fact that this murder was orchestrated in Mexico and it was done as a retribution because some of their supply was intercepted by a person, I'm not sure who that was right now, but somebody stole some of that drug. And if they can't get you as the person who steals that drug, or if you're responsible for, let's say, transporting it across the United States, if somebody takes it from you, they'll hold you accountable. And if they can't get you, they'll get your family members. And this speaks to the violence of these cartels. And they operate under this intimidation and violence, and that's how they keep control of the product, and they keep control of their employees, if you will, as well.
This guy was a professional athlete, an Olympic snowboarder. His photograph on the screen right now. Let's hear from the OPP just for a second here, Steve, and then we'll debrief a little bit more on the murder aspect of this. Let's listen.
Sure.
And continue to investigate those offenses with our partners from the Ontario Provincial Police due to the connections of those acts of violence and their connection to Peel. These tragic cases reflect the violence tied to transnational and organized crime and the trafficking of illicit drugs and the firearms that are used to effect that business. In Peel, we continue to experience the effects of those types of crimes. And if you can imagine how far Peel is from Los Angeles, where we're announcing these results today, we experience the results and the benefits of enforcement initiatives like you see here today.
Okay, so that's Peel's deputy chief there, and you just see the piles of drugs there on either side of these officials. But when it comes to the murders, what happens here in terms of extradition? What's dealt with first, and kind of, I guess, is it order of precedence? Is it order of scale of the charges, the severity of the charges?
Yeah, well, I think it'll be order of precedence. So the Americans are investigating these multi-billion-dollar transportation and trafficking of narcotics. So they will have first crack at this guy once he's apprehended by the Mexicans. They'll prosecute him, and then the Canadians then will extradite him, most likely from the United States, here to Canada to face this double murder charge that he's looking at right now.
And see, who's orchestrating all of this, like behind the scenes? How do these different jurisdictions work together? Local law enforcement here, the FBI.
So you've got lead investigators on every case themselves. They'll coordinate through the RCMP. The RCMP will be the ones that will spearhead this. The local investigators will take their cases, but they'll go through the RCMP to make contact with the feds in the States and in Mexico. The chief of police from Peel, we heard in that press conference, you don't just show up as a deputy chief in another country and hold a press conference. That's got to be orchestrated, organized, and it's got to go through the proper channels. And I do believe it's the RCMP, along with Interpol, that help these different police agencies in different countries to come together and do law enforcement.
All right. That's our crime analyst, Steve Ryan. Thanks so much for breaking this down for us.
You bet.
Appreciate it. All right. It is 5:41, 14 degrees. You're watching CP24 live at 5.
And coming up, a protest by rideshare drivers today over a new pricing scheme being used by Uber. Prosecutors are seeking a court order to assess whether an Ontario woman accused of killing 3 people in 3 cities over 3 days is fit to stand trial.
Sabrina Caldar's defense lawyer says it also has some fitness concerns, but has been instructed by its client to oppose an assessment. 30-year-old Caldar is facing 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. She's accused of killing 66-year-old Trin Thi Vu in Toronto, 47-year-old Lance Cunningham in Niagara Falls, and 77-year-old Mario Bilic in Hamilton.
Well, another Ontario woman is alleging that she was sexually assaulted by a group of former junior hockey players.
I thought it was my fault. I thought I was the one that was responsible because I had made the choice to go hang out with this guy and a couple of buddies.
And the victim, who's going by the name Anne-Marie, revealed the details of the alleged incident to W5's Rick Westhead. She says that the assault took place 10 years ago when she was 22. Anne-Marie came forward earlier this year to the OPP, which directed her somewhere else.
What the operator should have done was stayed on the line, transferred the call to the jurisdiction where, this alleged assault took place, and ensured that a report was taken properly. Instead, the OPP operator said, you need to call, that city where you say this happened, and ended the call. And then kind of compounding things, when Anne-Marie did call that local police department, she was given wrong information. She was told, no, you don't come to us with that. You go to the police station closest to where you live. And then when she made that third call to a third police force close to where she lives, she was on hold for nearly 30 minutes before hanging up.
Provincial police have released a statement on this incident saying we can confirm that the civilian call taker provided the victim with the contact information for the police service of jurisdiction to facilitate their report. However, standard operating procedures state that the call taker should have personally connected the caller to the police service of jurisdiction and remained on the line until the call taker could confirm that a report was being initiated.
The OHL has released a statement that reads in part, quote, the league takes allegations of this nature very seriously and will cooperate with any corresponding police investigation. The OHL recognizes the courage required for victims of sexual assault to come forward with their experiences and would always desire to see justice served and perpetrators held to account.
We're learning more today about what police say were escalating tensions between rival Hamilton students that led up to a deadly crash.
Police confirm at least 100 students were involved in a fight last week, which they describe as part of an ongoing conflict between 2 high schools. Days after that fight, on October 11th, 15-year-old Jaden Russell was killed in a crash on the Lincoln-Alexander Parkway. It's believed the RAV4 that the teen was in was being chased by at least one other car when it crashed. 18-year-old Vincenzo Stumpo has been charged with dangerous driving causing death. And police claim that he was driving the RAV4.
To Queen's Park now, where Toronto MPP Kristen Wong-Tam was joined today by community partners and health experts to call on the Ford government to reverse their decision to close 10 supervised drug consumption sites across the province. Not only does the group want the consumption sites to stay open, they say hours and services should actually be expanded and previously closed sites should be reopened. They also want the province to guarantee access to treatment and recovery services when they're requested, instead of what they say are current 3 to 12-month wait times for detox and treatment beds.
8 people a day are dying in Ontario because of the poison drug supply. Addictions can affect anyone. People deserve the support they need to live safely, and they need a government that relies on evidence and empathy to make life and death policy decisions.
Just as certainly as supervised consumption sites save lives, their closure will cost lives. This Premier knows. A government's duty is otherwise, surely, to save lives, to limit the risks and harms to the citizenry of Ontario, and to ensure access to services for that purpose. It is simply called harm reduction, and it's what nurses do every day in settings across the health system. It is deeply embedded in nursing practice. It is deeply embedded in the ethics of nursing.
CTSs do more than prevent overdoses, as you've heard. They're a crucial point of contact with the healthcare system for many, including patients with previous trauma who are unable to seek care elsewhere. Patients of mine, have been connected to life-saving treatment for infections and chronic diseases at the Regent Park CHC, which is set to close. Data shows that CTSs have facilitated over 533,000 referrals to essential services in Ontario. And so closing CTSs will sever these vital connections, leaving many people without support.
The new rules will force consumption and treatment service facilities within 200 meters of schools and childcare centers to close. 5 of those sites are here in Toronto.
Well, the protest by rideshare drivers today over a new pricing scheme being used by Uber, that's been happening. The Rideshare Drivers Association of Ontario organized the protest, which was held at Pearson Airport. The drivers are upset about Uber's new upfront fares. It uses artificial intelligence, AI, to tell drivers what they'll make and passengers what they'll pay ahead of time. The drivers complain that it's costing them money.
What we're seeing in the first week of this rollout of the upfront fare system using this artificial intelligence is if someone picks up a ride at the airport and they're taking them to Barrie or Buffalo or Hamilton or Niagara region, what would have been a very lucrative ride for an Uber driver, he's now being paid 30% less on average for those rides. And Uber's simply pocketing the extra money.
Well, Uber has said that the upfront fares offer drivers a new level of transparency.
And speaking of transit, a new rally is being held this hour to call for new subway trains on TTC's Line 2.
Here's a live look outside Bathurst Station. The transit advocacy group, TTC Riders, is calling on federal ministers of parliament to invest in TTC repairs and new trains on Line 2 by accelerating the implementation of the Canada Fund, or rather Public Transit Fund. The current trains on Line 2 will reach the end of their design life in 2026. ATU Local 113, that's the union which represents TTC workers, is also taking part in the rally.
5:50, 14 degrees. You're watching Live at 5. Coming up, Israel says it has killed Hamas's top leader, Yahya Sinwar, in a battle with Israeli forces in Gaza. Israel says it has killed Hamas's top leader, Yahya Sinwar, in a battle with Israeli forces in Gaza.
A foreign minister, Israel Katz, calls Sinwar's killing, quote, a military and moral achievement for the Israeli army. Sinwar was one of the chief architects of the October 7th terror attack on Israel. He was chosen as Hamas's leader in July after the previous leader was killed in an apparent Israeli strike in Tehran.
Palestinian officials report at least 28 dead, including 4 children, in an Israeli strike on a school being used as a shelter in Gaza. Nearly 100 people were wounded in the strike in Jabalia, according to the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry.
Well, India's government is denying that it was working with criminals in Canada to target Sikh separatists.
Since September of 2023, the Canadian government has not shared any shred of information with us. Yesterday, again, after the public inquiry, public hearing, we had again issued a statement saying that Canada has leveled serious allegations, but has so far not given any evidence to back it up.
Well, the spokesman for India's External Affairs Ministry suggested that Canadian authorities have been resisting India's attempts to extradite those who are being alleged to have committed crimes. Canada expelled several Indian diplomats earlier this week, alleging they were sharing information about Sikh separatists with the Indian government so that they could be targeted criminally.
Meantime, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller maintains they want to seek cooperation between Canada and India to resolve the allegations.
When it comes to the Canadian matter, we have made clear that the allegations are extremely serious and they need to be taken seriously, and we wanted to see the government of India cooperate with Canada in its investigation. Obviously, they have not chosen that path.
Well, U.S. officials met with members of India's government earlier this week as part of talks over an alleged foil plot to murder a Sikh separatist on American soil.
It is 5:55, 14 degrees. You're watching Live at 5. Coming up, the Piano Man is making his way back to Toronto.
Look at that. The Piano Man, he's making his way back to Toronto. Billy Joel will be returning to the city for the first time in more than a decade with a show at the Rogers Centre March 15th. The music superstar last came to Toronto in March of 2014. That's when he performed at Scotiabank Arena. And tickets for this concert are set to go on sale beginning October 25th.
If you don't like Billy Joel, maybe soccer's more your thing. And as Toronto continues its preparations to host the FIFA World Cup in summer 2026, the city is actually putting out the call for some artistic talent to contribute. Officials are looking for artists to design the official FIFA World Cup 26 host city poster. The selected poster should encapsulate the spirit and identity, Toronto and its World Cup theme of the world in a city, an expression of interest with a brief biography, and up to 10 examples of previous work can be submitted until the end of the month, but design proposals aren't yet required. So you can send yours in, Bakari.
It's 5:59, 14 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thanks so much for watching. CTV News at 6 is up next.